Looks like a dystopian hellscape. Checks out. Are they headed to re-education camps? Didn't the Germans try something like this in World War II? That looks disgusting. These are all comments made about this post that we're going to talk about today. And along with talking about this post and high-speed rail, we're going to talk about climate change. Because climate change is a topic that we really need to talk about. It's one of the biggest threats to humanity we've ever seen. But anyway, let's get into it. This post says, "This is the future liberals want," and it shows a train station. Now, this train station showed in this video is located in China. It's featuring China's high-speed rail system. And China has a lot of high-speed rails and trains due to their massive population, which is in the billions. But if China did the United States approach instead of high-speed rail, for example, in the US, it's really focused on automobiles and cars and driving. And if they did that in China, they wouldn't be able to get around anywhere. In America, we have these big diesel pickup trucks, especially down here in the South where I live. If that was happening in China and a billion people had massive cars traveling all over the roads, they wouldn't be able to function as a society, which is one of the reasons why they highly invested in high-speed rail. And one of my biggest dreams for America, especially as someone who lives in Atlanta with tons of traffic, is having an amazing train system. And we're going to talk about why I want a high-speed rail system in the US later in the video, but for now, let's look at some of the comments and what people thought of this post. Digital Assassin says, "You want America to be China. We get it. We are saying no." They have high-speed rail systems and very good trains in Europe, so I wonder if he would have the same sentiment if they posted a European country having high-speed rail. Total government control on who may travel and to where each may travel, probably based on social credit scores? Seems about right for the left. I think this is what the kids say, quote unquote, saying the quiet part out loud. I don't know what you mean by total government control. It's a train station. What are you talking about? Anyway, the next comment says, "Looks like a dystopian hellscape. Checks out." Again, it's a train station. What is dystopian about people being able to travel for a low cost? What is, I don't understand. And this is the last one we're going to look at. Viva says, "This literally looks like trains going to camps." By camps, he means concentration camps. And Chris Miller responded by saying, "Bingo, that's what he wants." Someone hopping on a high-speed rail train to go to work is not like going to a concentration camp. I don't know how you can make that comparison. People in concentration camps were tortured and had absolutely horrible things done to them. That is not the same as taking a train. Not to mention, the trains that took Jewish people to concentration camps did not look like high-speed rail trains that are in China, so. But anyway, it seems like the group consensus in the comment section is basically China bad. And anything remotely related to China is a dystopian hellscape for the average American citizen, including cheap, safe, and environmentally friendly travel by train. But there are tons and tons of other countries that use high-speed rail, not just China. China's the biggest one and longest one because of their population and their size, but other countries like Spain, Japan, France, Germany, and even the United States use high-speed rail. Now in this chart, you'll see the United States uses 735 kilometers of high-speed rail, which is minuscule compared to the size of the United States. But nevertheless, we still have that here. But anyway, let's talk about why having a high-speed rail system and a very integrated train network in the United States would be advantageous for US citizens. But not only for US citizens, but for the environment as a whole. Cars, trucks, and other vehicles are a very big component of global warming because they emit a massive amount of carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas that contributes to climate change and contributes to the warming of the planet. The US recorded a total of 5.6 million metric tons of carbon dioxide that contributed to greenhouse gas emissions, and 29% of that was because of transportation. And by transportation, they mean things like cars, trucks, planes, ships, etc. And if we keep using gas vehicles and big diesel trucks like here down in the South, it's going to lead to our eventual demise. One of the reasons I advocate so heavily for trains and high-speed rail is to take a lot of these cars off the road. For example, if you have 1,000 cars and 1,000 people going to work and sitting in Atlanta traffic and releasing a bunch of carbon emissions, versus you have one train that transports 1,000 people, that train will be much more environmentally friendly than those cars. And trains not only produce greener emissions and are better for the planet, but they also have a great economic impact as well. Well, maybe not for Honda and Ford who produce cars, but for the average American citizen, it is better to have safe and cheap and environmentally friendly travel. And what I mean by this is, a lot of Americans are facing wealth inequality, poverty, and some of them are unable to go to work. Because in American cities, if you don't have a car, there is no way for you to travel or get to work unless you take an Uber or you walk. But if your job is 20 miles away, you can't walk to work. And you might be thinking, oh, well, why don't you just take a bike? Well, in American cities, they're not usually bike friendly. There are no sidewalks, there are no bike lanes. America is designed for cars. And by the way, when I say that America has no bike lanes, we do. I'm using an over-exaggeration. But what I'm trying to say is when you look at other countries, specifically in Europe and other places across the globe, there are 3,000 times more bike lanes and are bike friendly than America is. For example, I visited France a couple years ago and I was shocked. I was like, you can just walk to the train station, get on the train, you can take a bike, you can walk places. In America, in many cities, that wouldn't even be remotely possible because of the infrastructure built around cars. And implementing a very, very good infrastructure and a high-speed rail system in America would help a lot of people, specifically Americans in poverty, which is going to allow people to go to work more, stay longer at their job, be able to come home at a reasonable time, not have to wake up at 4 a.m. to the morning for their 3-hour walk to work. And when people are spending much less on transportation, they can spend that money elsewhere in the economy. For example, instead of spending $10,000 for a car to go to work, they can take the high-speed train for $5 a day and be able to put that $10,000 elsewhere, like into a home or into things for their children or better education, etc. Without an amazing train infrastructure in America, people are forced to take things like an Uber to work, which costs $50 and they make $7.25 an hour. And if you work for 8 hours a day at $7.25 an hour, that's $58 a day. And your Uber is going to be between $30 and $50 every day. You're basically taking home nothing. That's why a lot of people in poverty in America are working 2 jobs and 16 hours a day, because they have to, because they can't afford to live. Giving Americans access to cheap systems like trains is going to revolutionize how people spend their money. People aren't going to have to think about, how can I get to work today? What can I do to minimize my cost to get to work so I can save as much money as possible? They can just hop on a train and go there. So when I see all these comments of people being highly against high-speed rail because China, it just blows my mind. Because some of these people commenting are in poverty and a high-speed rail system would dramatically help and improve their lives. But in America, we've been taught that anything China does is bad and it's basically communism. So anything related to that, we don't need and we don't want. A lot of Americans are against their own self-interest. And talking more about the economic boost of creating a high-speed rail system, if the American government says, hey, we're going to make 300 miles of high-speed rail, that's going to create a massive amount of jobs, a massive amount of infrastructure, and a massive economic benefit. And a high-speed rail system would also connect regions which would previously have been inaccessible to a lot of people. And when you connect cities by high-speed rail, humans start to trade more and boost the economy. But anyway, we talked about the economy, we talked about carbon emissions. Now let's talk about less traffic. Because again, as someone who lives in Atlanta, having less traffic by any means possible would be absolutely amazing and phenomenal, at least for me. And when you have a rail system that can transport 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 people, it takes a lot of those cars off the road and reduces traffic, of course. But it also reduces commute time. I mean, I remember one day I was traveling home back from a place in Atlanta and I had to wait in an hour of traffic. And when you reduce traffic and reduce the commute time it takes people to get to work and the mall and other places, it means they can spend more time doing things they like. Instead of waiting in an hour of traffic to and from work because of the massive amount of cars on the highway, they can spend that hour with their kids and their family. They can spend that hour doing a hobby they like. Maybe they like playing video games and they want to spend more time doing that. Whatever the case may be, but I think we can all agree that spending less time in traffic is a good thing. So when people say, I hope liberals move to a place like this, I'm like, I hope so too. A place where there's cheap and available transportation, where people who can't afford cars can get to work and take care of their families. A place where the environment isn't getting completely destroyed by carbon emissions from cars. A place where if you drive a car, there's very little traffic and you can get to places really easily. That sounds amazing to me. But to the thousands of people in this comment section, that's a dystopian nightmare, which is, my brain literally cannot comprehend that. But I guess making your life worse is what these people like. I don't really know. Let me know in the comments down below where this mentality comes from. And before I end this video, I want to make something clear. This is not an endorsement of China or saying that, oh my God, everything China does, the United States should do. I'm just saying that we could really learn from China's high-speed rail. And that implementing some of these systems of transportation that China has would greatly impact the lives of many Americans. But anyway, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know what you thought of this video in the comments below. And let me know if there are any topics you would like me to talk about next. But with that, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Everyone keeps telling me how my story is supposed to go. Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.